My dad demanded I sacrifice my honeymoon to babysit his daughter's kids. Just 96 hours before my wedding, my dad stood in my kitchen and demanded I cancel my honeymoon to babysit my sister's kids, calling it a test of loyalty. I smiled, said I failed, then blocked them all and went to Bora Bora. What followed was a hurricane of 163 missed calls. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. You see, my name is Mason Carter. I'm 35, and that day my father, Richard Rick Caldwell, marched into my kitchen like he was delivering a court summons. He didn't even say hello. He just launched into it. We need you to cancel your honeymoon and watch your sister's kids. He said it on speakerphone, right in front of my fiancée, Claire, and our wedding planner, as if it was completely normal to draft me into unpaid labor while I was literally finalizing seating charts for my own wedding. To understand how we got here, you have to know how I grew up. My household was a place where love was always evaluated by usefulness. My dad, who worked for the county for 28 years, brought that do your duty attitude to everything, including parenting. My mom, Elaine, a nurse, could be kind in private, but in public she treated our family like a brand that had to be immaculate. And then there was my sister, Vanessa Caldwell. Vanessa is 3 years older than me, and she was always the sun in our family solar system. She was loud, attractive, dramatic, and constantly embroiled in some situation that demanded urgent finance, childcare, emotional assistance, or often all three. Me. I was the kid who just finished his homework without being asked, avoided getting into trouble, and kept my head down. Adults love that kind of kid because he can be ignored and still turn out well. One of my earliest memories is being 9 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a science fair project made of cardboard and glue. I was so proud I couldn't sit still. Then Vanessa walked in, weeping because she hadn't gotten the lead in a school play. My mom didn't even glance at my project. She just pulled Vanessa into a hug and whispered, "My poor baby." My dad looked at me and just said, "Mason, clean up your mess. Your sister needs us." It was always phrased that way. Vanessa needs, Mason can handle it. When I was 16, I made the varsity soccer team. My dad promised he'd be at my first home game. He wasn't. Vanessa had a full-blown panic attack because some guy hadn't called her back. So my parents took her out for ice cream and called it family time. The next day, my dad just rubbed my shoulder and said, "You're tough. Your sister is sensitive." Then, at 18, I got a scholarship offered to a really good engineering program. I remember gripping that letter like it was about to fly away. My parents were overjoyed for precisely 1 minute, until Vanessa decided she wanted to attend a private, out-of-state institution that cost a fortune. Suddenly, my scholarship wasn't a success. It was just convenient. It meant they could spend money on Vanessa and call it balanced parenting. The only person who ever said the silent part aloud was my uncle, Frank Holloway, my mom's older brother. He wasn't wealthy or flamboyant. He had a modest auto shop and always smelled like motor oil and peppermint gum. He'd look at me over his coffee and say things like, "You're not a spare tire, Mason. Don't let them keep you in the trunk." I used to just giggle because it sounded like a strange joke, but he was the first adult who ever made me feel seen instead of just handled. Fast forward, and I did the responsible kid thing. I worked hard, got my degree, moved to the DC area, and worked my way up to a position that made my parents proud in the only way they truly understood, a job title. I was trained as an engineer, but I moved into human resources and operations because I'm good with people systems, compliance, and fixing broken processes. I work for a multinational corporation with offices in the US and Europe, and my job is essentially half technical and half preventing people from suing each other. It's stressful, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. I live in Washington now, in a row house that's slowly becoming a home, not just a crash pad. My girlfriend, Claire Bennett, is the kind of person who adores planning. She planned our wedding as if she were creating a miniature, beautiful cosmos. All I had to do was show up and not make a mess, which, honestly, seemed like too much to ask if you were my family. As I got older, the family dynamic shifted from emotional favoring to outright financial dependency. It started small, as it always does. When I was 25, my dad called and said, "Vanessa is short on rent just for this month. You know how expensive everything is." I sent $750. It felt like the adult thing to do. 3 months later, Vanessa's car needed repairs. She can't get to work. I mailed $1,500. Then it was, "Your mother's credit card got a little high because of medical bills." I sent $1,400. It was only when my mom accidentally emailed me the wrong document that I started seeing those medical invoices also contained spa appointments and shopping receipts. When I asked about it, she got immediately defensive and irritable. "Are you auditing your own mother after everything we've done for you?" That phrase, "after everything we've done for you," was like a key that unlocked guilt on command. Vanessa eventually married Brandon Pierce, who played the charming provider in public and the bewildered, helpless man in private. They had 3 kids, Mia and Leo, and suddenly every single conversation revolved around childcare. Vanessa would call me weeping, feeling overwhelmed. By the end of the call, I'd be committed to watching the kids on Saturday so she could relax, and also mailing money because Brandon's salary was delayed. Brandon's salary was constantly delayed, as if it had a personal vendetta against timeliness. One year, I actually calculated it. Combining random transfers, emergency funds, and family shortages, I had sent around $27,300 in 11 months. That amount made me feel physically ill. Not because I couldn't afford it, but because I hadn't even realized it was disappearing. It was like a financial hemorrhage you can't see until the floor gets slick. I started keeping records. Nothing dramatic, just a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and a small note on what it was for. My uncle, Frank Holloway, would call me on Sundays to check in about work. One day, I jokingly mentioned the spreadsheet. He didn't laugh. "Good," he said, his voice serious. "Paper beats poetry. Feelings won't save you when they rewrite history." I didn't completely understand what he meant then, but I would. When Claire and I got engaged, I naively assumed the family dynamic would soften. Weddings make people nostalgic, right? People talk about love and togetherness. They get teary-eyed. They behave. My family, however, saw my engagement as an opportunity to bargain for my time and money. My mom's first question wasn't about Claire's ring or our future. It was, "Will you make sure Claire has a role? She'll be devastated if she's not important." My dad's first question was, "How much are you spending? Don't be wasteful." Meanwhile, my parents had just helped Vanessa upgrade to a larger home because her children needed a yard. They didn't have the money, but they were confident. The down payment was a loan from my parents' retirement account, which I only learned about after my father casually mentioned it and then asked if I could help refill their funds. I asked Claire what she wanted our limits to look like, because she's so much wiser than me in these matters. She said, "Your family treats you like a resource, and I don't want our marriage to begin with me watching you be drained." We settled on something basic. We would pay for our own wedding. We wouldn't borrow, nor would we allow anyone to attach strings. We also booked our honeymoon early because it was something we both wanted to experience. No opinions, no committees, and absolutely no family needs. Bora Bora wasn't just some random flex. Claire had a photograph of the blue lagoons glued inside her childhood notebook. She grew up in a modest apartment and used to say she wanted to swim in glass-like water someday. So we did it. We saved. We planned. We paid the deposits. The total cost for flights, resort transfers, and excursions was roughly $26,800, and it was non-refundable past a certain point, which happened to be right before our wedding. The wedding week arrived like a tsunami. Last-minute meetings, final fittings, vendor calls. My work was also in one of those hectic periods where every global office suddenly realized HR existed. So I was juggling compliance fires while pretending to be calm. Then, 96 hours before the wedding, my father called. Not texted, but called, which in my family indicated something significant. I answered because I was still the child who cleaned up the mess to keep the peace. He didn't say hi. He just stated, "We need you to cancel your honeymoon and watch your sister's kids." I actually laughed at first. It was so preposterous that my brain interpreted it as a joke for self-defense. "What?" I asked. "Vanessa's operation is set for next week," he added like it was obvious. "Family emergency." Claire froze in our living room, clutching place cards. "Surgery? What surgery?" I asked. My father's voice became rougher, as if my questioning was disrespectful. "It's private. She needs help. Brandon has work. Your mother and I have appointments. You are the only option." I was looking at Claire, and she was staring back with that expression that screams, "Please don't do it. Please don't reflexively do it." I said, "Dad, we're getting married in 4 days." "I know," he responded. "That's why you have time. You can reschedule the honeymoon. Just call and move it. And if you can't, then you'll eat the cost. That's what family does." That was the first time anything truly resonated in me. He wasn't asking, he was assigning, and he was perfectly content spending my money in his mind. I said no. The silence on the line was sudden and thick, like I had slapped him. Then he did what he always does when he felt he'd lost control. He escalated. "This is a test of loyalty, Mason Carter," he declared. "You can't start your marriage by abandoning your sister." Claire's jaw dropped wide, as if she couldn't believe someone would actually say such a thing aloud. "A test of loyalty," I repeated softly, savoring the words. "Okay." My father must have heard something in my voice, because he tried a new approach. "Your mother is very upset," he stated. "She says Claire is changing you." I glanced at Claire. She didn't say anything. She just waited, as if she were letting me decide who I wanted to be. "What surgery is it?" I asked. My father hesitated. "Just a fractional reconstruction," he said, and that term was so well chosen that my skin crawled. It sounded serious. It sounded noble. It sounded like an attempt to shame me if I didn't cooperate. But I've been in HR long enough to know that when someone is vague, it's because the specifics would destroy the narrative. I replied, "Send me the details. What hospital? What doctor? What paperwork? If it's a family emergency, I need to know what I'm walking into." He snapped, "Don't interrogate me." I shot back, "Then don't draft me." He hung up. My mother called 6 minutes later, weeping so hard it sounded staged, like she was reciting from a screenplay. "Mason, please," she begged. "Your sister is scared." I asked again, "What surgery?" "She doesn't want everyone to know," my mother wailed. I responded, "Mom, I'm not canceling my honeymoon on the spur of the moment. What is the surgery?" There was a pause, followed by a gentler voice in the background. "Vanessa," she said, not sounding scared but irritated. "Tell him it's my mommy makeover," she remarked, as if ordering coffee. My mother shrieked at her, as if she'd spoken too loudly. I blinked. "Mommy makeover?" I repeated. Vanessa picked up the phone. "Mason Carter, this isn't your business. It's elective, but I need it. My body is damaged. Brandon's not attracted to me anymore." I almost lost my cool right then, but what I felt more strongly than anger was sudden, crystal clear clarity. I asked Vanessa, "You want me to cancel a $26,800 honeymoon 4 days before my wedding to babysit because you booked cosmetic surgery?" She snapped, "It's not cosmetic. It's medical for my mental health." "That's not how insurance codes work," I interjected, and then instantly regretted sounding like HR. My mother came back on the line and tried the guilt again. "Mason, your sister has done so much for you." I chuckled, but the tone was melancholy. "Name one thing." My mother went quiet. We both knew the answer. Then my father called back, not to apologize but to threaten. "If you don't do this," he warned, "don't expect us to show up for you." Something inside me felt strangely tranquil. I told Dad, "You're already not showing up for me. You are attempting to take." He started ranting about respect, family, and responsibility. I just let him talk, because I wanted to understand the shape of the truth. It wasn't love. It was entitlement. While he spoke, I opened my spreadsheet. I scrolled. I looked at the transactions. I saw the patterns. I saw myself shrinking year after year to keep them comfortable. Uncle Frank Holloway's words echoed in my mind. Paper beats, poetry. I texted him a single sentence. They want me to cancel my honeymoon to babysit for Vanessa Caldwell's cosmetic surgery. He called immediately. Put it on speaker, he instructed. So I did. My father was still lambasting me when Uncle Frank's voice cut in. Richard Rick Caldwell, he boomed. Are you out of your mind? There was a startled silence. My father despised being challenged, especially by someone he considered beneath him. This is family business, my father yelled. It became family business when you tried to steal his honeymoon. Frank Holloway stated, Mason Carter is not your employee. He's not your nanny. He is not your banker. My mother tried to weep again. Do not aggravate the situation, Frank, she wailed. Elaine Caldwell, Frank Holloway said. It's already worse. You're asking your son to pay the price for your daughter's vanity. Vanessa screamed. It's not vanity. Frank Holloway ignored her. Mason, he said. Tell them no and send me your records. My father barked. Records? What records? And that's when I understood. They never intended me to keep the proof. They wanted me to be grateful for scraps of approbation, but too embarrassed to count the cost. I looked at Claire. Her eyes shone, but she wasn't crying. She looked proud and fatigued, as if she'd been holding her breath for years and was finally exhaling. My father's voice came back, strained. Mason Carter, this is your final opportunity. Do you choose your sister or selfishness? He said it as if my marriage was a hobby. I could have argued. I could have explained. I could have begged them to understand. But I didn't want it anymore. I wanted freedom. So, I grinned, even if they couldn't see it over the phone because it was meant for me. I said, You said it's a test of loyalty. Yes, my father snapped. I failed, I said, and then I hung up. I blocked my father, then my mother, Vanessa, Brandon, and the aunt who constantly texted, Family is everything, after begging for money. My hands are trembling, but not from terror. It was exhilaration, like I had finally jumped off the cliff I had been standing on my entire life. Claire murmured, Are you okay? I said, I don't know, but I'm done. The following 96 hours were a haze. My relatives didn't show up for the rehearsal dinner. They didn't help. They didn't send a message. They had plainly concluded that their absence constituted punishment. The strange thing about boundaries is that when you stop asking for permission, punishment loses its bite. My friends showed up. Claire's parents arrived. Uncle Frank Holloway showed up too, dressed in an ill-fitting suit and a tie he plainly despised. He stood by me like a guardrail. The wedding itself was stunning, small enough to feel authentic, large enough to feel like a party. When I looked out at the seats and didn't see my parents, I felt a twinge of sadness because you always miss the family you wished you had. But then Claire clasped my palm, and I realized the truth of what I was doing. After the wedding, we boarded an aircraft. Bora Bora was like walking into another person's fantasy. The air was warm and salty, and the water was so clear that it appeared fake. Claire sobbed when we first saw the lagoon from the boat, and then she laughed at herself for sobbing. And I laughed as well because I had never seen her so free. We took photos from the overwater bungalow terrace. We ate fruits that tasted like sunlight. We swam at night with the underwater lights, blazing like a private galaxy. On the second day, Claire shared a photo of us in the sea, her head on my shoulder, both of us tanned and laughing like idiots. I didn't think about my phone. I didn't check. I didn't care. Then, later that afternoon, I opened out of habit and saw 163 missed calls, dozens of voicemails and messages from numbers I hadn't banned yet, indicating that my family had hired cousins like a call center. One message from my mother, from a new phone number, said, How could you do this to your sister? She is in pain. You're wrecking the family. One from Vanessa read, If something goes wrong in surgery, it will be your responsibility. I hope Claire Bennett is worth it. Another from my father said, when you come back, you will apologize and make things right. The sheer assumption of ownership. Claire looked at my expression and asked, what is it? I handed her my phone. She read the messages silently. Then she glanced up and said, do you want to respond? I replied, no. I blocked the new numbers. We went back in the water. I won't pretend that I didn't think about them. I did. At night, when it was quiet, I imagined my mother reading a narrative in which I was the villain. I pictured my father's rage simmering. I envisioned Vanessa as the tragic heroine in a predicament she contrived. But I also pictured something else. I imagined what it would be like to stop being accessible for use. When we returned to Washington, reality slammed like a frigid wind. There were more calls, more texts, and more family members were suddenly extremely interested in togetherness. One relative commented, your parents are devastated. They paid for everything for you growing up. I almost responded with my entire upbringing in one letter, but Frank Holloway's voice reverberated in my brain once more. Paper outperforms poetry. So I sent a single sentence. Please address any future communications to my attorney. Yes, I retained an attorney. Not because I wanted to sue them for emotional harm or something crazy. I hired an attorney because I've learned that individuals who feel entitled to you don't stop with guilt. They continue to escalate. They show up at your home. They call your job. They attempt to produce repercussions. My attorney assisted me in drafting a simple notice. No contact, no harassment, no visits to my home or business, and any efforts would be reported. Uncle Frank Holloway also assisted me with something practical. We reviewed my financial documents and closed all open pipes. I had been paying for a family phone plan because it was easier. Gone. My mother claimed that her monthly assistance payment was for utilities. Gone. I co-signed for a credit card years ago because my father claimed it would help us improve family credit. Closed. The most difficult phase was then completed. We grabbed my bank statements and compared each transfer to the spreadsheet. It was worse than I'd remembered. In the previous 3 years, I'd sent a little over $28,400. That $24,000 to $29,000 range I used to estimate in my brain wasn't overly exaggerated. It was genuine. It was money that might have gone towards my personal emergency fund, house repairs, and future children. When I saw everything lined up, I did not feel triumphant. I felt humiliated. Not because I helped, but because I had made assisting them my entire identity. My family reacted just as you would anticipate. First came the wrath. My father left a voicemail from an unknown number calling me ungrateful and stating that he would never forgive me. Then came bargaining. On a Saturday morning, my mother attempted to reset the scene by showing up at my house with pastries. Claire opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it behind her. That was a small gesture that meant so much. She didn't invite my mother in. She didn't offer a chair. She just stood on the porch, calm. My mother said, I just want to talk to my son. Claire replied, you can talk to his attorney. My mother's face twisted as if Claire had slapped her. You are turning him against us. Claire didn't raise her voice. No, you did that. My mother started crying, and Claire remained motionless. My mother finally left, furious that tears were ineffective. Then their relatives arrived to support them. An aunt, a family friend, and someone who hadn't mentioned my name in years all became suddenly concerned. They all used the same lines. Your parents are older. Your sister has children. Family is family. You'll regret it. I began responding the same way every time. I am not going to discuss it. Please speak with my attorney. It made people angry, which was how I knew it was effective. They didn't want a boundary. They wanted a debate that they could win through guilt. The strangest moment occurred 3 months later when I learned from a cousin who still spoke to me that Vanessa's surgery went well. Not life-saving, not tragic, Fine. She posted selfies after her recovery, discussing healing and self-love. In the comments, she alluded to toxic people who do not support mothers. I looked at the screen and realized something that altered the way I saw everything. My sister didn't want to be supported. She desired control over the narrative. She wanted the power to make me jump. My father didn't want family unity. He sought obedience. My mother didn't want peace. She desired appearances. And I didn't want to be the one who funded and corrected their decisions while they treated me like a disposable tool. The last time I heard my father's voice was through my attorney. He wanted to mediate, which in my family means you apologize and then pretend nothing happened. My attorney told him no. After that, it became quieter. Not magically or all at once, but quieter. Claire and I began to live as if we weren't waiting for the next emotional invoice. We didn't check our phones every 6 minutes while cooking dinner. We spent weekends doing boring, happy things like walking through farmers markets and debating paint colors. Uncle Frank Holloway came over one Sunday and assisted me in repairing a stubborn cabinet hinge. He didn't say, "I told you so." Instead, he worked beside me in quiet comfort. He leaned back, wiped his hands, and asked, "How do you feel?" I considered it. I thought about Bora Bora's water and 163 missed calls. I considered my father's test of loyalty. I considered my mother's tears as a weapon. I thought about my sister's entitlement disguised as an emergency. And I said the truth. I told him I felt lighter, and I'm disappointed that it took this long. Frank Holloway nodded. It takes however long it takes. That night, Claire and I sat at our small dining table and signed paperwork for something boring and adult, like updating beneficiaries, organizing our accounts, and ensuring our future was secure. It was not romantic. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt peaceful. I used to think that walking away meant being cruel, that it meant I had given up, that it meant I was failing an invisible exam that everyone else easily passed. Now I see things differently. Walking away was not vengeance. It was about survival. Boundaries are not a form of punishment. They are truth with consequences. And real family doesn't have the authority to demand the most from you. It's about who shows up respectfully, who treats your life as if it belonged to you. Regardless, I didn't go to Bora Bora because I was being cruel to them. I went because I was getting married, and I chose my wife, my future, and my own dignity. If this meant I failed their test, that's absolutely fine. I decide who has a front row seat in my life.